Part 165. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1641. At this point, the affairs of Hades and the underworld come to an end. It's not that Xiao Ming can't develop new tasks, but he doesn't want to do more tasks before he is sure that Hades can be dealt with. The more tasks the accuser does, the stronger Hades will be. It is more in Xiao Ming's interests to let him continue to sleep. The current situation is that almost all Hades temples are located in the underworld, and the managers are still ghost clones of Xiao Ming. So he can close all temples to the outside world and not accept any undead souls as new believers. The faith value I paid could only maintain the minimum existence of the temple. Try to slow down Hades' recovery as much as possible. But don't forget, there is also a city of Hades on the strategic map, which was the former funnel city. This city is managed by the Teller of the Dead, and the entire city functions as an intermediate temple. There are many undead residents in the city. If they actively choose to believe in Hades, there will be no way to stop them from telling the dead. Unless the city of Hades is destroyed and all the residents are driven away. But that would be an overreaction, and it can't be done. Because under normal circumstances, the system does not allow players to actively destroy their own cities. Hades City was the first city that Xiao Ming acquired, and it can be said that it has developed quite well today. As time goes by, it will definitely bring a large number of believers to Hades. Hades will recover sooner or later. When Pluto is weak, Xiao Ming's mental ability can suppress him and deceive him, but this is not a long-term solution after all. As long as Hades recovers to a certain extent, he will definitely be able to see through the deception of the accuser. By then, I really don't know how it will end. So Xiao Ming decided that he still had to find a way with the other three gods Athena, Odin, and Poseidon. After all, only the Lord God can deal with the Lord God in the end. Just before Hades becomes powerful, support other gods and let him/her deal with Hades. After taking a look at the progress of the three roles of researcher, explorer, and diver, and combining it with his own situation, Xiao Ming chose to seek a breakthrough through the line of Nordic god King Odin. Not for anything else, just because these days, a large number of believers have poured into the Greek sanctuaries and underwater temples, and the situation is very good. Only the Nordic fairyland was pitifully deserted. Xiao Ming's temperament was more sympathetic to the weak, so he planned to help Odin first. Well, these are just high-sounding words. Xiao Ming actually has other plans in mind. Both gods, Athena and Poseidon, gained large numbers of followers. This means that if Xiao Ming wants to do anything, it will be more difficult. Other believers will spontaneously monitor him. Only Odin and Gata have few people, so it is easier for Xiao Ming to monopolize power. And because the Nordic fairyland is the poorest place, Xiao Ming's ability to print unlimited money can have the greatest effect here. In addition, to be honest, he also covets Odin's shirt. Isn't it just to collect the 7 Odin sapphires on the god's cloak? It's not too difficult to imagine. As soon as Xiao Ming switched to the explorer, a male NPC in his 40s, wrapped in animal skins, said to him, "Sir Explorer, hunting Arctic wolves is still too difficult. Otherwise, let's go to the lake to see if there are any fish," he said, and pointed to a lake near the Asgard. After checking the records for a while, Xiao Ming learned that the guy who was talking to him was named Rigel. He and his tribe are the only followers to join the Nordic Asgard so far. They are not humans, nor the elves or half-elves common in Europe, but a tribe of Viking orcs. Because the climate in northern Europe is too cold, elves and half-elves are not adapted to life here, and humans are slightly inferior in terms of tenacity. Only by choosing the right technology tree can this area survive in the long term. Therefore, among the long-term residents of northern Europe, there are a large number of orcs. After all, the strong bodies of orcs can better withstand the cold and hunt wild animals. They are collectively known as Viking orcs. Moreover, because they live on a peninsula, Viking orcs are also good at water warfare. This is the biggest difference between them and the grassland orcs in the east and the desert orcs in Africa. The various orc tribes living north of the Great Wall of Ming Dynasty are all landlubbers. It is extremely brave on land, but once it enters the water, it immediately sinks to the bottom. However, this group of Viking orcs led by Rigel is relatively poor, and calling them a tribe is a bit overestimating them. The total number of men, women, old and young is less than 100. They are considered a family, which is too bragging. It also failed to fill the first ring mission requirements of the Explorer. It is only a few believers short of 100. Originally, because their tribe was defeated at the seaside, they fled into the large forests of the Scandinavian mountains and struggled to survive. The reason why they became followers of Odin was not because a blind cat met a dead mouse and found the Nordic fairy palace by accident. Rather, they were attracted by the miracles displayed by the explorers. The explorer established the Shaking Star Temple on November 15. He waited there for 3 days but did not see any believers coming to the Nordic fairy palace. God Odin knew that this was not going to work. After all, you will get what you pay for. The Nordic fairyland is hidden deep in the mountains, so it is difficult to attract believers. So, taking advantage of his first believer, the explorer, he dedicated a large amount of faith value to the Temple of the Shaking Star. He issued a separate quest to the explorer that was not part of the quest chain. Show Miracle, Purple Master level task. Consume more than 10,000 faith points to perform a miracle for Odin. Announce the good news of the resurrection of the great god Odin. The more faith points consumed, the larger the scale of the miracle, the longer the duration, and the better the effect. Naturally, the better the reward the player gets. In this matter, after obtaining Xiao Ming's approval, the intelligent program Xiao used 50,000 faith points and exceeded the task. He was rewarded with 1,000 points of the upper limit of the small universe. The huge projection of the statue of Odin hung high above the Nordic fairy palace for 5 days and 5 nights. People outside the mountains may not be able to see it, but several tribes living nearby actually saw it. However, the great god Odin has not been sent for a long time, and now only exists in the legends of the Viking orcs. Their tribes have long changed their beliefs. At present, there are only a handful of people who still remember Odin. That is, guys like Rigel, who inherited the legacy of generations of tribal leaders, can still vaguely remember such a thing. No one in other tribes believed the news that Odin was back, only Rigel chose to take a gamble. Anyway, his tribe was on the verge of collapse, so he decided to give it a try. Xiao Er was so happy to see them join him that he accepted all of them without even asking. After accepting them, he found that the tribe had run out of ammunition and food. So he took advantage of the explorer and first converted the entire tribe into ascetics and bought exclusive suits. The physical fitness of the tribesmen was greatly improved, increasing their chances of survival. Then the explorer led his mercenaries to help the orcs hunt for food. When Xiao Ming switched over, he happened to catch up with this scene. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1642. Speaking of the explorers' mercenaries, they really played a big role. First of all, the number of more than 30 mercenaries is quite large, which is already equivalent to the total number of young adults in the Rigel tribe. The quality of the soldiers is also good. The mercenaries of the explorers are all ascetics. They can prevent high health and heal the enemy. Even level 1 or 2 ascetics can be very helpful at the beginning. Apart from anything else, a healing spell can save lives at a critical moment. However, as the Viking orcs took up their posts as ascetics one after another, and they all learned healing techniques, the advantages of mercenaries gradually weakened. After all, the orcs who can come out to hunt are all above level 3, and Rigel himself is a level 5 berserker. The lower level troops are somewhat unable to keep up with them. Their tribe has been eliminated through various hardships in life, and most of the surviving warriors are strong. It is estimated that in the near future, some of them will understand the small universe and become warriors. As a result, 2/3 of the first and second level mercenaries were left by the explorers in the Nordic fairyland to help the old, weak, women and children. When hunting, only level 3 troops can be brought into battle. It is obvious that after joining the explorers, the combat effectiveness of the Rjal Orc tribe has been significantly improved. In addition, within the scope of the miracle, they have also been blessed by the god King Odin. Although Odin's current ability is still very low, he can't be of much help. But it was possible to make the Viking hunts go more smoothly. Over and over again, life for the Rjal tribe has indeed improved these days. However, nearby wild animals, especially predators, also began to migrate out. He gave up the ecological niche he occupied to the Viking orcs. Herbivores don't need to panic, it doesn't matter who eats them. Before the large-scale population expansion of Nordic Asgard, these herbivores should still remain around. This time, explorers and orcs jointly hunted Arctic wolves not to store food, the real purpose was to drive them away to prevent them from competing with the tribe for prey. So there is no need to kill them all, just drive them away. Don't chase the poor bandits. Otherwise, if they really fight for their lives, the orcs will have to suffer a lot of losses. The current population is so precious that we can't bear to part with it. In comparison, Rjal prefers fishing. Eating fish can remind the orcs of their days as pirates. Ever since they hid in the Scandinavian mountains, there was no fish at all. It would be a lie to say that I don't miss the highlight moments of the past. Unexpectedly, there is a huge lake in the Nordic fairy palace deep in the mountains. It is rich in aquatic products, enough for the tribe to develop a population. The orcs were actually very happy. After understanding the general situation, the explorer smiled slightly, put the mercenaries back into the tent, and took the orcs back to the immortal palace. Currently, the Rjal tribe basically lives in the intermediate temple of Shaking Light Star. After a while, when the food reserves are abundant, they will start building houses. Move out of the temple and live there. However, there is no spare time for the time being, so they still have to settle in the explorer's temple. Outside the temple, a dozen orc children were receiving instruction from an old orc warrior, practicing with real swords and swords. Life in the tribe is difficult, and even children have to receive combat training early. There is no time for them to play and enjoy their childhood. Other female orcs were also busy inside and outside, cleaning the temple, organizing items, washing clothes, cooking food. They were very busy. The Viking orcs have always been strong and tough, and female orcs are no exception. Strong women can even hunt with men. In the eyes of humans, it is inevitable that the flavor of women is missing. Now it seems that this is not entirely the case. At least, these busy orc women are a bit like good wives and mothers, but their muscles are relatively developed. In fact, orc women also have to take care of housework, but generally speaking, their work is rough. Clothes are often torn when doing laundry, and they are scattered all over the floor when cooking. However, life was difficult for the whole tribe in the early days, and it was impossible to continue to be lavish. They were forced to learn to budget carefully and manage housework lightly. Now that they have a beautiful temple as a place to live, of course they have to take care of it. The level of detail in doing things is already comparable to that of human women. Seeing the soldiers returning happily, they knew they must have returned victoriously and drove away the Arctic wolves. Everyone came forward to greet them. First they bowed to the explorer, and then they took their family members and became very affectionate. As for the soldiers not bringing back any prey, it didn't matter at all. They also don't want their father, brother, nephew, or nephew to get hurt. There are plenty of fish in the lake, and they don't want their relatives to fight against the wolves. Cough, cough. The explorer deliberately coughed twice to attract everyone's attention, and then said loudly, "Very good, I have seen your piety these days, and hereby declare that you have passed my test and will be receive God's reward." "Great. What test? And a reward?" Rigel and others immediately started talking among themselves. The orcs were relatively content. They felt that the previous explorers had given them enough. Full of yearning for the future life. As a result, the explorers now say that the previous ones were tests from God, and they will continue to give rewards in the future. This made the orcs a little confused. Are there more benefits? Everyone looked forward to it. Xiaoming said no more, stretched out his hand to open the space door, and a large amount of food, furniture, and building materials appeared out of thin air in the open space in front of the temple. It caused a burst of exclamations. The orcs were stunned for a while, and then almost at the same time they rushed to the pile of things, touching this and moving that, and arguing for a long time. It was Rigel who figured it out first. He shouted to stop the chaos of the crowd, and led everyone to kneel down and thank the temple of Odin, and bowed to thank the explorer. The favorability of the crowd towards the explorer increased rapidly, and in a short while, 7 or 8 die-hard fans appeared. There were still a dozen orcs, who were only one step away from diehards, and they would arrive in a few days. Xiaoming thought that Rigel, the original leader of the tribe, would not be very happy about this. After all, it was a disguised weakening of his power. But what he didn't expect was that he was also one of the orcs who were about to become diehards of the explorer. Is this guy's character so reliable? He doesn't envy, jealous, and hate? It's really rare. Xiaoming's idea is to measure the orcs with human habits. The orcs are indeed barbaric and cruel, but they are also relatively simple and direct, without so many tricks. For the explorer, the first believer of the great god Odin, the orcs are quite respectful and have no intention of fighting for power and profit. Moreover, the explorer's strength has also been recognized by them. This situation is similar to how Wang Feng, Shatong Tian, and others gain the loyalty of the residents of Khwarezm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1643. The explorer's level is less than level 4, and when controlled by the intelligent program Xiao, his strength is not particularly outstanding. Why can the orcs respect him? You should know that among them, there are dozens of level 3 and 4 warriors, and the leader Rigel is a level 5 berserker. They should not look down on the level 3 explorer. In fact, this is an idea that only those who do not understand the explorer role well enough will have. Even if Xiaoming does not log into the role himself, the combat power of the explorer operated by the intelligent program is quite impressive. First of all, the profession of Jedi Knight is very eye-catching. Various applications of the Force are also excellent, and the super strong attack power of the lightsaber is even more eye-catching. When hunting, encountering some hard bones that are not easy to chew, even Rigel can't do anything, but the explorer's lightsaber can break the defense. Naturally, he will be looked up to. In addition, the explorer's 2,000 points of small universe can barely keep him wearing the god-fighting clothes for 4 minutes. In these 4 minutes, the explorer is an excellent meat shield with good attack power. It is enough to make the orcs astonished. It is not surprising to get their respect. The adult orcs respect the explorer because of his strength, while the orc children are completely bought by the explorer's ascetic barbecue and love him for the barbecue. As the saying goes, the half-grown boy eats the old man out of money. This is even more true for the orc children. They can eat more than adult humans, but they often don't have enough food. There is no way. The tribe must first ensure that the warriors who go out hunting have sufficient physical strength, and then the women who work at home. The priority of children is only ahead of the elderly orcs. but there are not many elderly orcs left in the tribe. So these children have the lowest priority and have been in a semi-starved state. These days, there is suddenly a generous explorer brother. The barbecue in his backpack seems to be bottomless. No matter when you ask for it, there is always barbecue. The children are so happy. Since then, they have developed a habit. Whenever they see the explorer, they will surround him to ask for barbecue. Fortunately, according to Xiaoming's habit, the backpacks of the 4 game characters have always maintained a large amount of barbecue inventory, and the Bright Summit is full of barbecue. It was not eaten up by the group of orc children. Therefore, he won the love of the orc tribe. Taking out the barbecue again to send away the children who surrounded him, the explorer walked into the temple. He was going to test an idea before. The matter of using the Ghost Messenger clone as a Hades warrior gave Xiaoming inspiration. Since the Ghost Messenger clone can become a candidate for the Hades warrior, can his own mind beast also be? The most suitable mind beast is Xiaoming's Alien Queen and Alien King Kong. Their current strength is above a level. Mainly because Xiaoming developed the Kyber Crystal weapon series in the Star Wars world and gave them a major upgrade, and the aliens were upgraded. However, if you want them to become god warriors, the small universe is also indispensable. Xiaoming planted the seeds of the microcosm in the 14 members of the alien family, including the queen, in the Yaoguang Star Temple. With the combat experience and strong mental strength of these guys, the seeds of the microcosm quickly took root and sprouted, and grew vigorously. Soon, they had the microcosm of the Bronze Saint Seiya level. That is, it is similar to the Explorer, with a few thousand points of microcosm. After all, they are just mind beasts, and unlike the Ghost Messenger, it is already precious that the microcosm can rush to the bronze level at once. You know, the protagonists in Saint Seiya such as Seiya and Iki all need to practice for many years to reach this level. Don't be weak. Then Xiaoming immediately arranged for Old A, Old C, and the eldest to the 5th, a total of 7 alien King Kongs, to declare their loyalty to the god King Odin. The remaining few are ready to become sea warriors. The hidden task chain The Rebirth of God King Odin, the second Ring The Glory of Odin task is finally completed. The Explorer's microcosm limit add 1000, and 1 more foundation stone for the Odin temple. Comparing with the informant, you will find that Odin is more stingy than Hades in terms of the microcosm rewards. But although Hades was generous, he had hidden malice and hoped that Pandora would take over his body. In fact, it was equivalent to giving it to his own people in the future, so he was so generous. Odin doesn't like to play that kind of trick. Unexpectedly, the 3rd ring mission was not released directly. Because of the addition of 7 A-level alien King Kongs, the god King Odin needed to readjust the plan. In the Hades lineage, Hades's way of playing is to take over the body with the magic star. Odin will definitely not play it that way. But we can't wait for the newly promoted god warriors to cultivate their microcosms little by little, cultivate to the level of gold saints, and then distribute the 7 god fighting clothes like in the original work. It will take a few years, and players don't have that patience. The time span must be shortened. Odin has 3 sets of standards for the selection of the 7 god warriors, corresponding to players, free NPCs, and NPCs subordinate to players. Player characters need to provide enough microcosm and faith points for Odin-like explorers to obtain the status of believers. Believers ranked in the top few are eligible to exchange for god fighting clothes, and need to pay a large amount of microcosm and faith points. There are only a few genuine god fighting clothes, and the quick ones will be gone. Since the Nordic Asgard is relatively poor, when Odin recovers to a certain extent, he will most likely be willing to accept offerings in terms of money and wealth. As the first believer, the explorer got the god fighting clothes for free. After all, he awakened the god king, so it is normal to have some preferential treatment. If it is a free NPC without affiliation, the players will not know about the transaction between Odin and him, so there is no need to explain it. However, if it is an NPC belonging to the player, including soldiers and creatures, then Odin will also issue tasks to the player. Xiaoming's 7 aliens are mind beasts, which are equivalent to the player's subordinates. The system evaluated that they are qualified to become god fighters, and qualified to become genuine god fighters, so the exchange qualification was issued to the explorer. As long as Xiaoming pays enough small universe and faith value, he can buy the remaining 7 god fighting clothes. What? Didn't the explorer already get the Yao Guang star god fighting clothes? There should be only 6 left. But please don't forget that Qiang star is a binary star system. In addition to the main star, there is also an auxiliary star. So Qiang star has 2 god fighting clothes, 1 main and 1 auxiliary. The only difference is that there is no Odin sapphire on the Qiang Fuxing's god's battlesuit. But it doesn't matter now. Because even the explorer's Yao Guang star does not have Odin sapphire, no one has the right to laugh at anyone. It is estimated that this lineage will definitely have the task of competing for Odin sapphire in the future. Let's see what the situation is then. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1644. Thanks to the game system, Xiaoming's mind beasts were treated as the player's soldiers, so things went very smoothly. The alien King Kongs had A-level strength as soon as they appeared. Even if their microcosms were not very good, their 7th level combat power made them no less powerful than the slightly weaker Gold Saints. They were enough to take on the responsibility of God Warriors. This is also the biggest difference between the game and the original work. In the original work, the warriors of each god must fight with microcosms, and there is no other power system. In the game, even if the microcosm is insufficient, you can still serve as a god's warrior. This is the backdoor specially prepared by the game system for players. It is difficult for a player to cultivate the microcosm to the bronze level, the most basic 1000 points, not to mention the 10,000 points of the Silver Saint, or even the 100,000 points of the Gold Saint. Some people may immediately point out that it is possible to obtain microcosms by completing tasks. The deceased did tasks for Hades, and it took only more than a week to increase the upper limit of the microcosm to about 500,000. Can't other players just copycats? Even if they can't reach such a high level, it shouldn't be difficult to have 100,000, right? Indeed, a small half of the accuser's microcosm was obtained by devouring Pandora's soul fragments, which is about less than 200,000. The remaining 300,000, in theory, can be obtained by other players. But it is extremely difficult and is definitely not something that the current players can do. Because most of the rewards are exchanged by Xiaoming with a large amount of microcosms, faith points, gold coins, and resources from Lord Pluto. Among them, only the faith point can be achieved by the player guild by fully mobilizing the masses and expanding its influence. The other 3 items are very difficult. Players can't have so many microcosms, and they don't have such strong financial resources at this stage. They don't print money like Xiaoming. Only when the mainstream players reach level 6, the top player guilds can barely meet the money-making ability. As for whether they will be willing to spend billions of gold coins and resources to please Hades at that time, it is unknown. So it is not easy for players to obtain microcosms through tasks. It is not difficult for top players to get to the silver level, but it is absolutely tiring to get to the gold level. The gold level here refers to more than 10 masters, including 12 gold saints, 7 genuine god warriors, 7 sea generals, and the 3 giants of Hades warriors. If the system forcibly requires that the player's microcosm is not enough, he cannot serve as a gold level fighter. Then this plot cannot be advanced at all, so it is necessary to lower the requirements appropriately. System settings, for players and their arms. As long as the microcosm is good and the combat power is sufficient, they can serve as gold saints. The combat power here refers to the combat power reflected in the character's personal attribute panel, not the actual player's combat power. Otherwise, as long as Xiaoming is online, it will definitely be enough. From the perspective of character attributes, at this stage, except for the deceased, the other three are not enough. Although they have obtained gold-level combat uniforms, they are still in the trial period. On the contrary, these 7 aliens are strong enough, and their microcosms are also in good shape. As long as they get the god fighting clothes, they will be recognized as official god fighters by the system. Xiaoming knows this because he witnessed it with his own eyes. A+ level alien guards, Lao A. When he is in the beast form, he has a pair of huge eagle wings, which can shoot feathers like a machine gun. He is a field-controlling warrior. Xiaoming chose the Alpha Star Tianxia Star double-headed dragon god fighting clothes for him. As an alien with the ability to fly, wearing this god fighting clothes is also a match. Of course, Lao A's strength is still a certain distance away from Check-Fried, who wore this god fighting clothes in the original book. A few thousand points of microcosm is not enough to maintain the god fighting clothes for too long. It is not enough to perform Check-Fried's ultimate move 9 Heavens Wandering Dragon Fist or Odin's Sword. Xiaoming did not exchange his moves for him. However, Xiaoming could feel that after wearing the double-headed dragon god fighting clothes for a few minutes, Lao was very eager for Check-Fried's ultimate move. This became the reason for him to work hard to cultivate his microcosm. Maybe in the future, Lao can cultivate his microcosm to a very strong level through his own efforts and exchange his own moves. Xiaoming admires this positive and enterprising spirit. He even hopes that all the aliens can learn progressive experience from Lao. Because his individual strength is strong enough, the moment he gets the 2-headed dragon god's battle suit, the system announces that the great god Odin officially recognizes Lao as the Tianxia Star God Warrior. It's just that Odin has not really resurrected yet, and many very powerful functions have not yet been opened. There are only some very basic functions. For example, Lao can exchange 3 cornerstones of the Odin temple every month. The explorer himself only has the right to exchange 1 cornerstone every month. In addition, Odin also gave Lao an orange epic task. Because Lao is regarded as a soldier, this task is sent to the explorer. Test of Tianxia Star, as the name suggests, once this task is activated, Xiaoming will enter a small secret realm with Lao and accept the test of Tianxia Star God Warrior Check-Fried together. The system didn't need them to be able to defeat Check-Fried. That guy was the best among the God Warriors. An S-level existence. It was almost impossible for normal players to defeat him. The system just wants to see how many rounds the player can last under the opponent's hands by cooperating with Lao. The longer you survive, the better the reward. This reward is very likely to be the upper limit of the small universe. As long as you can pass the test to the minimum, Odin will give Lao the famous Odin Sapphire. Xiaoming estimates that if he activates the Dragon Warrior fusion in reality, and then fights against Check-Fried with Lao, completing the task is not a problem, and he may even be able to defeat the opponent. Because Xiaoming's characteristic is defensive counterattack, and he has sufficient stamina. As long as the enemy cannot defeat him quickly, he can use his endless energy to wear the opponent to death. It is almost certain to get the Odin Sapphire. Unless Odin cheats and improves Check-Fried to a level that he can't even deal with. But this kind of thing is almost impossible to happen. He is not Hades. In the original book, it seems that there is no difference whether there is an Odin Sapphire on the god fighting clothes. In the game, once the god fighting clothes are inlaid with Odin Sapphires, the attributes can be greatly improved. Improve the fighting power of the god warriors. The benefits are huge. Collecting 7 Odin Sapphires can start the task of obtaining Odin's robe. This is what Xiaoming wants most from the Nordic palace. In the reincarnation world, Xiaoming learned about the existence of Odin's robe from the information of the Alberich family. He also reported this to the North Star Hilda. But later, there was no news about this matter. After the end of the Holy War, Xiao Ming was in charge of the Nordic palace for many years, and he had no chance to see the style of Odin's robe. It's quite regrettable to say. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1645. 12 hours later, the Explorer and Olda finally completed the test of Tianxia Star mission. Needless to say, when they came out of the secret realm, they ran to their personal space again. There was no other way. The main game was open for 12 hours every day. If the Explorer and Olda were defeated by Checkfried earlier in the secret realm, they could come out earlier. But with Xiaoming, Checkfried couldn't defeat them, so it was delayed until the longest time to finish. The main game must have been paused at this time. Of course, if the player was defeated within 2 hours, the mission would fail. The main subject of the mission, Olda, must be able to survive for more than 2 hours. The longer he persisted, the higher the completion of the mission, and the more awesome the reward he received. However, after persisting for 12 hours, the reward limit was reached. There was no need for more. Of course, the best case scenario is that the Explorer and Olda can work together to defeat the examiner Checkfried. In that case, the reward will definitely be raised to a higher level, but it is a bit too much to ask. If it were in reality, Xiaoming's dragon warrior form, with the help of a group of masters, could really defeat Checkfried. After all, at this time, the world of Greatsword has been settled by Xiaoming. The S-level Abyssmen Ili and Livlu have become insect humans and joined Xiaoming's army. In reality, they can help and can indeed defeat Checkfried. But now it is in the game, and the two Abyssmen can't get in at all. There is no place to use their strength. Even if they come in with game equipment, they have to start from level 0 players, and for a long time, they can't play their normal strength. Similarly, Xiaoming can't show the strongest dragon warrior form in the game, and still have to use the Explorer, a game character with poor attributes. Even if he logs into the game in the form of a dragon warrior, it only increases the energy he can use, and can't change the attributes of the Explorer character. The effect is also unsatisfactory. Unable to exert the strongest combat power, Xiaoming is unable to kill Checkfried, and can only drag his survival time to the longest. That's the highest reward. In fact, the battle between the two sides in the secret realm was a stalemate. No one had the ability to kill with one blow. It took 12 hours. Xiaoming was a little annoyed, but he could do nothing about it. After all, Checkfried in the secret realm was just a projection, without the wisdom of a real person. Normal people, even free NPCs, would not fight for 12 hours knowing the outcome. That's brainless behavior. Only the projection left by the god King Odin would be so rigid. For this, Xiaoming had no good solution. He could only reluctantly comfort himself by saying, half of the time, it was already after 8 p.m., so he didn't lose too much. Next time he takes this time-consuming test, he must grasp the time more accurately. Explorers can do other things first, and then take the test at 6 or 7 p.m. In this way, even if it takes another 12 hours, the task is done during the time after the main game is paused. It's more cost-effective. On the next day, November 25th, Xiaoming logged into the Explorer and accepted the task reward of the Tianxia Star test. The Explorer and Laowa each received a 2,000-point upper limit for the small universe. Obtained an Odin Sapphire. In addition, the system rewarded Laowa with Checkfried's 2 special moves, 9 Heavens Wandering Dragon Fist and Odin Sword. The moves were added to his skill list. Please note that this does not mean that Laowa has learned these 2 moves, but that he can use them in the game. If his small universe is enough. Of course, Xiaoming enthusiastically taught him his advanced experience. As long as he practices more in the game, he will definitely be able to bring the 2 special moves to reality. Lao looked at his small universe of less than 10,000 points and was silent. Practice of art, such a small universe is not enough to launch any move. I can only say that this result is not bad. Although it cannot be used for the time being, at least I don't need to redeem it myself. Save money. Lao is Xiaoming's first experiment with the alien King Kong as a god warrior. Xiaoming was very satisfied with the result. Next, it's time to continue to develop it. Xiaoming quickly pulled the other 6 aliens into the team of god warriors. He exchanged the 5 god warriors for Beta Star Tianqian Star 8-legged horse, Gamma Star Tianji Star Giant Snake, Delta Star Tianquan Star Crystal Skull, Epsilon Star Yuhang Star Sirens, Zeta Star Qiang Star Main Star Saber-Toothed Tiger, for the eldest to the 5th. Then he also led the 5 aliens to pass the tests of the corresponding 5 god warriors. He also obtained 10,000 points of the upper limit of the small universe and 5 Odin sapphires. In the original work, the god warriors Tianqian Star Hagen, Tianji Star Dilruo, Tianquan Star Alberich, and Yuhang Star Fenrir were not particularly powerful. Their strength was roughly between the Gold Saint and the Silver Saint. There was no need to be too cautious with them. Xiaoming quickly defeated the 4 people and completed the 4 test tasks. Perhaps because the overall strength of the god warriors was too weak, the system made some adjustments to the settings, allowing these 4 people to have the weakest Gold Saint level Cosmo, which was considered to give some face to the great god Odin. In this way, the test tasks of the 4 of them can barely be considered as orange epic tasks. The overall reward level was lowered by a level compared to the test of Tianchi Star. However, because Xiaoming passed the level quickly, the task evaluation was relatively high. So the reward he got in the end was basically the same as the Tianchi Star task. Moreover, the moves that the eldest, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th learned, such as Strong Heat Pressure, Thor's Hammer, Amethyst Seal, Cruel Wolf Claw, were not as powerful as Checkfried's moves, and the consumption was much smaller, so they could be barely used. Sure enough, everything has 2 sides. The god warrior Zidu of the main star of Qiang Star is stronger than these 4, but lower than the other 3. It is about the level of a qualified Gold Saint. So the system does not need to improve his combat effectiveness. Xiaoming and the 5th defeated him, and it did not take more effort than defeating the first 4. The reward was the same as the first 4. It's just that his 2 special moves Viking Tiger Claw and Azure Pulse Fist consume a little more microcosm, which makes the 5th's microcosm a little bit short and unable to perform these 2 moves. But this is a small matter. Because it won't take long, either through mission rewards or through his own practice, Lao Wu's small universe will soon fill this small gap. Things are going so smoothly, Xiaoming is in a good mood and casts his eyes on the last exchange option, Zeta Star Qiang Star Auxiliary Star Shadow Saber-Tooth Tiger God Fighting Clothes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1646. Back then, Badu, the shadow warrior of Qiang Star Auxiliary Star, left a deep impression on Xiaoming. This guy's powerful attack actually broke 3 Susanos of Xiaoming's 7 shadow clone in succession, and almost killed one of his bodies. How could he not remember it? One thing needs to be explained. The strength of Susanoo mainly depends on the user's development of this ability. If it is a super master like Uchiha Madara, the perfect Susanoo released can compete with Badu's fist. But Xiaoming's talent is limited after all. His Susanoo is far from the level of the perfect form, and his armor is not very strong, so it is relatively fragile. It's not much better now. Xiaoming has too many types of abilities, so his energy is naturally dispersed. And his need for defensive means is not so strong, so he didn't develop the ability of Susanoo. In fact, he didn't know that there are higher level forms. Facing a strong man like Badu, you can't underestimate him. So the explorer exchanged the Zeta Star Kiang Star Auxiliary Star Shadow Saber-Tooth Tiger God fighting suit to the A and level Old C. It happened that Old C had the chameleon gene and was good at stealth and sneak attacks. Being a Shadow God fighter is also a professional match. However, Xiao Ming can't rush to activate the test task of Kiang Star Auxiliary Star. After all, Badu's combat power is not much worse than Check Fried, even if it is not as good as Check Fried. I don't have the confidence to defeat him, and it is estimated that it will take another 12 hours. Looking at the time, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon in reality. Xiao Ming thought he could wait until about 6 or 7 o'clock to enter the secret realm and play with Badu. Now, help the Rjul tribe build a house. In fact, the first thing that came to mind was to build a temple for several new god fighters. This is the normal thinking of players. Although the system did not explicitly issue relevant tasks, Xiao Ming could guess from experience that there must be such hidden tasks. It is definitely not a loss to complete it in advance. But when I came out of the Yaoguang Star Temple, I saw the orcs of the Rjul tribe. I immediately thought that they didn't have their own houses to live in. It seemed a bit unreasonable to spend resources to build a temple without helping them solve the housing problem first. Anyway, we are not short of money, so we might as well build them a house first. Building a house in the game is more troublesome. If there is no architect and no building drawings as a foundation, even if a house is built with stones and wood, the system will not recognize it, and it does not have the function of housing. NPCs will not buy it. There is an old orc who is also an architect in the Rjul tribe, but his architect level is very low, and he can only build some wooden shacks, and the living environment is very poor. It just so happens that Xiao Ming has source energy and can restore the ruins to the original buildings. It just so happens that there are too many house ruins in the Nordic Fairy Palace. Everything is ready, only the east wind is missing. Soon, the explorer's strong behavior of repairing the house caused a commotion and worship in the Rjul tribe. As expected of the first believer of the great god Odin, he is very capable. At first, he was tinkering in the ruins of a house, and did not attract much attention, because the adults were busy. There were only a few children following the explorer, tearing the barbecue and watching the excitement. They thought he was playing some novel games. But soon, even the orc children found something unusual. The first believer was so powerful that he could build a big house with ease and said he would give it to everyone to live in. The bear children were so happy that some of them were heartless and went into the new house to explore as soon as possible. Because when Xiao Ming restored the house, he chose those that were relatively large, so he could explore for a long time. Some sensible ones ran to call their mothers. After a while, the elders and women in the tribe also gathered. They were more knowledgeable and knew how magical the explorer's ability was, so they immediately worshipped the explorer. It was regarded as a miracle. After worshipping, some women hurried to the lake to find the leader Rjul and other young warriors who were fishing, and called them back to see God together. Xiao Ming had already given them a lot of supplies, so they would not have to worry about food and clothing in the short term. Why did the young and strong people in the tribe still go fishing? This is the habit of the Vikings. Flo received the supplies supported by the explorer, and everyone was smiling. Rjul decided to have a big banquet tonight to thank the explorer and let the members have a good meal. If the food provided by the explorer was used in the banquet, wouldn't it be giving someone else's things to others, which would be a bit embarrassing? So Rjul decided to rely on the power of the tribe to fish to entertain the explorer, and also to satisfy his appetite, as he hadn't eaten fish for a long time. As for building a house, of course they had thought about it, but the plan was to start building the house tomorrow after the banquet tonight. And it was a shack. There was no way, they didn't have Xiao Ming's ability, so they could only build a shack. Although the quality is poor, it is still a home. The orcs don't mind. I never expected that the explorer was so considerate and powerful. He actually solved the housing problem for them personally, and they were so moved that they burst into tears. Anyway, after Xiaoming built enough houses for the entire tribe to live in, almost everyone in the tribe became loyal to him. The exceptions are a few very young kids. They don't dislike the explorer, but they just don't understand what die-hard fans mean yet. Xiaoming couldn't help but sigh that it was much more difficult for him to please NPCs and improve their favorability before. At that time, he was not stingy at all and was willing to spend money, but he couldn't be so efficient. The reason is that the explorer borrowed the light of the great god Odin this time. When it comes to gods, NPCs will be more pious. The explorer is the first believer appointed by the god King Odin. He has the Yeoguang star god fighting cloth and is powerful. He has 6 more powerful genuine god fighters under his command. The orcs of the Rjal tribe, who are also believers of Odin, how can they not be extremely respectful, grateful, and loyal to the explorer? After the house was repaired, they immediately pulled the explorer to hold a banquet. They were not in a hurry to move into the new house. They were really grateful to the boss first. Xiaoming also had a good impression of these straightforward orcs. He couldn't resist their kindness, so he joined the party. Eating and drinking, singing and dancing, having a great time. He almost missed the main task. Finally, around 7:40 p.m., Xiaoming realized that there was another task waiting. So he said he was tired and returned to the temple to rest. In fact, he secretly joined Lao Si and activated the orange task test of Qiang Star's auxiliary star before the main game was paused. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1647. Back in the reincarnation world of Saint Seiya, Xiaoming was able to deal with Badu entirely by relying on the opponent's mental weakness. That is, the bond between Badu and his twin brother Zidu. On the one hand, he was jealous of his brother. As long as Zidu died, Badu could become a true god warrior of Qiang Star. Not just a shadow. On the other hand, he also loved his brother subconsciously. The deepest purpose was not to replace him, but to get his brother's recognition. He himself did not even realize this. Became his inner demon. It was with the help of this key that Xiaoming broke through Badu's defense and turned his enemy into a friend. So, he planned to do the same in this mission. However, to his surprise, the setting of the test by the great god Odin was different from reality. He kept Badu's projection free from the disturbance of this inner demon, just a pure warrior. The explorer's self-righteous mental attack failed to stir up a ripple, wasting energy in vain. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk, alas, I thought that if I could defeat Badu, the reward would definitely be higher. The result is still the same. The explorer and Lao Si still have to spend 12 hours to get 2,000 points of small universe each. Badu is still a freak. Other god warriors have taught 2 tricks to their successors, but Badu is different. He only has 1 trick, Shadow Viking Tiger Claw. Of course, this is actually no different from the tricks of Checkfried of Tianxia Star. They are all tricks that the current alien King Kong can't use at all. It doesn't matter whether it's 1 or 2. If Lao A and Lao Si work hard in the future and really cultivate their small universe to the level of Gold Saint Seiya, there is still not much difference between 1 or 2 tricks. After all, the power is almost the same. Badu back then only had 1 trick of Shadow Viking Tiger Claw, and Xiaoming even had more than 100 tricks, but he was almost beaten to death. Badu's random punches and kicks have the power of a big move. So the real strength depends on the realm. Only when the realms of both parties are almost the same can various wonderful moves come into play. Old C only learned 1 move, which was a bit of a loss. However, the explorer became rich. Because the god King Odin gave Old C the Odin Sapphire at the last moment. In other words, Old C, the auxiliary star of Qiang Star, actually became a genuine god warrior. And in the future, even if the explorer passes the test, he will not have Odin's sapphire, and can only be a shadow god warrior. This plot of the emotional god warrior is set up like this. Among the 8 candidates for god warriors, the first 7 people who get Odin's sapphire can become genuine god warriors. And the 8th can only be a shadow god warrior, no matter which god warrior you get. However, the ownership of the god warrior has not changed. The explorer still holds the Yeoguang star god warrior, and Old C still wears the Qiang star auxiliary star saber-toothed tiger god warrior. Xiao Ming always thought that the last Odin sapphire could only be obtained after the explorer reached a certain level and passed the test of the Yeoguang star Mi Yaimei. Unexpectedly, he got it so early. What good luck! The 7 Odin sapphires reappeared, and the 7 genuine god warriors had successors, automatically activating the 3rd ring of the explorer's task chain glory of the 7-star god warriors. This is a red legendary task, with 3 requirements. 1 Players must build temples for the 7 genuine god warriors, 2 Recruit at least 100 believers for each temple, 3 Recruit at least 3 god warriors as guards for each temple. The general situation is almost the same as the 2nd ring task, except that the number has all doubled by 7 times. No wonder the level of the task has been raised by 1 level. It is because the 7 genuine god warriors are occupied by the explorer's subordinates that the system has no choice but to merge such a task. It is not difficult to build 7 temples. Xiao Ming is not short of money, and he already knows the original location of the temple, which is the location of the Big Dipper. The 2 temples of Qiang Star need to be built together. The explorer took some effort to run through all the locations and built all 7 intermediate Odin temples. Very easy. The real trouble is the other 2 requirements, recruiting believers and god warriors. This is more difficult. There are a large number of Greeks in Athens who miss the goddess Athena, so it is too easy to recruit believers. Because the sea tribe is more prosperous under the sea, it is not difficult to recruit believers in the underwater temple. But the Nordic fairy palace is located deep in the mountains covered with ice and snow, and it is rarely visited. Where can I get 700 believers? God warriors are not easy to deal with, because even if they are miscellaneous soldiers, they must open the small universe. This requires a long time of practice. Fortunately, as long as Xiao Ming gives some NPCs the seeds of the small universe, the small universe they initially obtain is enough for them to be miscellaneous soldiers. The difficulty still lies in the number of believers. At this time, Xiao Ming suddenly remembered the previous plan. Didn't he plan to bring Shuabo Liangshan and the Nordic fairy palace together? Because he was worried that Liangshan would take over and become the leader, Xiao Ming decided to do it himself for the time being. He would get a certain advantage first. Now, 7 genuine god warriors, 7 Odin sapphires, and 8 god fighting clothes have all fallen into his hands. It seems that there is nothing to be afraid of. It's time to bring the Liangshan heroes over, but before that, there is one thing to confirm. Xiao Ming brought 7 Odin sapphires to the statue of Odin, hoping to summon Odin's robe. He didn't know what to do specifically. He learned about this by absorbing Alberica's memory and looking up the family's books. But the details were not very clear. Sure enough, he held up 7 Odin sapphires and performed 13 moves under the statue of Odin, like a shaman. In the end, it was useless, and he didn't know what went wrong. Little did he know that it was because there was no problem anywhere that the explorer couldn't summon Odin's robe. Because Odin's robe can only be summoned when all Odin sapphires are collected when the Nordic palace is in crisis. Moreover, only those who are recognized by Odin can wear it. I believe that obtaining the right to wear the robe will become a complicated task in the future. The system will not easily give this right without tossing the players. Nowadays, everything is good in the Nordic palace, and it has developed well. Of course, Odin's robe cannot be summoned. This is because even the most basic prerequisites have not been met. Xiao Ming's cheeks twitched slightly, looked around, and let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, those orcs were far away in the Yeoguang Star Temple, and even the naughty kids didn't follow them, so no one saw me make a fool of myself. I felt relieved. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1648. Fellow Daoist Gong Sun, do you still not believe what I say? Explorer is my true disciple, and no one in the lineage of the ascetic monks dares to attack him. He is also the third-class Earl of our Song dynasty, and he holds the quota for the promotion of apprentice Jedi Knights, and no one in the officialdom dares to touch him. This disappearance is just an accident. You Liangshan should work together with us to find him as soon as possible. It is useless to accuse one by one. Instead, it makes people doubt your intentions. Mr. Guo, Explorer is your disciple, so he is not my disciple. He is also the deputy star of this Tianxian star, and my love for my disciple is no less than yours. It is not that Liangshan judges the heart of a gentleman by a villain. I love my disciple disappeared on your territory, how can you not be responsible? I see your breath, it seems that you are about to break through the 7th level. Maybe you want to get rid of my beloved disciple and monopolize the profession of Jedi Knight. Mr. Guo's character is reliable, but the court of the Song dynasty, you. Since you know that I am about to break through the 7th level, the court will only pay more attention to me. How can you do something at this time? You bandits are simply unreasonable. That's not what I said. Xiao Ming operated the explorer from the Nordic Fairy Palace to return to the ascetic temple where he settled in Bianliang City. He chose to appear in the backyard of the temple. After all, the flowers and trees in the backyard are most suitable for hiding Xiao Ming's parasites. As soon as he landed, he saw a large round table in the backyard. There were more than a dozen people, divided into two sides and confronting each other, arguing fiercely, with saliva flying. On the left is the Shuabo Liangshan lineage, led by his master Ruyanlong Gongsanchen, as well as the worldly devil Fan Rui, the prodigal Yanking, the holy hand scholar Xiao Rang, and several small leaders. On the right is the ascetic lineage, led by his other master Guo Jinsong, as well as Hong Jinbei, Huo Yingxiang, Lan Yura, and others. In the middle is the crowd of spectators, the little lowly Song Xiaofeng who is watching the fun. The reason for the quarrel between the two sides is also very simple, that is, because the explorer suddenly teleported away, and has been staying in the Nordic Fairy Palace since then. It has been missing for more than 10 days. Both sides are a little anxious. In fact, because the explorer, the founder of the Jedi Knight, is too important, there are 3 places for the promotion of Jedi Knights every week. These places cannot be used in the explorer's own circle. The key is that Xiao Ming himself also has the ability to give the Force Seed, and his own people do not need to occupy the quota. So the 3 places for the promotion of apprentice Jedi Knights every week were sold at a high price by the intelligent program Xiao Liangshan, the ascetic monks, and the Song dynasty court all gained something. Moreover, after 1.5 months, the power of the Jedi Knights, the diversity and comprehensiveness of the Force, deeply impressed several forces. They have begun to allocate a lot of resources around this profession and have made multifaceted arrangements. Suddenly, the most critical figure, the explorer, disappeared, and all parties were worried. Liangshan also took the risk and sent several senior officials to Tokyo Bianliang. The ascetic monks also sent corresponding people to connect and work together. However, looking at the leaders of both sides, Ruyanlong Gongsun Sheng and Guo Jinsong, they are not particularly important figures. Gongsun Sheng has always been a free and easy person on Liangshan. He seems to have a high status and sits in the 4th seat, second only to the big leader Song Jiang, the deputy commander Lu Junyi and the military advisor Wu Yang. In fact, he has no real power. He has nothing to do with financial power, military power, and political power. Such a big thing should be handled by a more powerful leader. Guo Jinsong's power is much greater than Gongsun Sheng's. But Bian Liang is also half of the home court of the bitter monks. If they really care about it, King Su and Zhao Di should be present. Then why are the two of them talking nonsense here? Is it that the explorer is not that important? Not really. In fact, both sides are very clear that at this critical moment, the forces of several parties are unlikely to take action against the explorer. They haven't taken enough advantage yet. If a few years later, all parties have trained a large number of Jedi Knights and obtained higher authority, they can develop trainee Jedi Knights. Only then will the explorer lose its value and may be calculated by people with ulterior motives. But at this time, it is too late for the forces of all parties to protect him. Even if it is a hostile force from other ethnic countries, they will choose to first figure out what the new profession Jedi Knight is, how important it is, and whether their country can also get involved. Only by figuring out this series of problems can we decide how to deal with the explorer. It is basically impossible to kill right away. What's more, they probably don't know the news yet. Both sides have done a good job in keeping the information confidential. Although the news will definitely be exposed after a long time, it is not a problem to keep it secret for 3 to 5 years. Other forces must still be in the dark. In addition, the ascetic monks have set up powerful magic protection on the explorer. If the explorer is really killed or captured by the enemy, the magic will definitely be activated to teleport him back, and the ascetic monks will know immediately. Gongsun Sheng also arranged a warning Taoist spell on the explorer. These protections did not give a warning, so both sides were very sure that the explorer was not in danger of life. Second, he was not kidnapped. He must have agreed to be teleported away. Thinking about the explorer's previous achievements, everyone guessed that this time he probably had some adventure again, so there was no need to worry too much. However, after all, the person has been missing for many days, so we must look for him. We can't just do nothing. In addition, this is also an excuse to blackmail the ascetic monk. Therefore, Liangshan sent the explorer's master Gongsun Sheng to come and investigate the situation in a more personal way, asking for justice. The ascetic monks responded to each other's moves. You sent a master, and I sent a master. Everyone was equally matched, and they didn't lose in the verbal battle. Behind the scenes, they were also secretly investigating. Whichever side could find the explorer in advance would get some advantages. Probably, that's what they thought anyway. Of course, not everyone only cares about interests and doesn't care about feelings. The two masters, Gongsun Sheng and Guo Jinsong, are really anxious and concerned about the explorer. There is also some sincerity in their verbal battles. Only the little lowly Song Xiaofeng is heartless. She was transferred from the strategic map to the adventure map by Xiao Ming. There is no interest involved, and she has no friendship with the explorer, so it really has nothing to do with her. She doesn't think the explorer will encounter any danger, and she has been busy watching the excitement of both sides these 2 days. These 2 days, she was attracted by the new sister Lan Yura, and she has been following Lan Yura, trying to find out the situation of the sister. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1649. After not seeing each other for a few months, Sister Lan Yura has returned to the level of a 5th level high priest, but her strength is completely different from before. Back then, the explorers used source energy to create a crossbow that could be used universally by the ascetic monks, which attracted the attention of the top leaders of the ascetic monks. It was at that time that Guo Jinsong and Mr. Guo accepted the explorer as a disciple. It was also at that time that Lan Yura and Lan Yura met for the first time. Explorers meet. At that time, she was a 5th-level ascetic high priest. Later, because the explorer presented the formula of the bloodthirsty potion, he was commended by the senior ascetic monks, and Lan Yura was the envoy responsible for delivering the reward. Gradually, I became familiar with the explorer. Then, during the mission of the mysterious cave in the Wushan Mountains, the explorer accidentally entered a certain barrier and did not want to meet the beautiful high priest again. She was already dying by then. Xiao Ming couldn't bear it and used the T-virus and antidote obtained from the secret realm of Resident Evil to revive Lan Yura. The T-virus also changed her physique, making her completely different. She first fell from level 5 to level 0, and then quickly rose back to level 3. The strength seems to be declining, but the potential is actually greatly increased. After being transformed, she can no longer be regarded as a simple human being, but should be regarded as the kind of human being with superpowers. No wonder it attracted the attention of Song Xiaofeng, a Taoist priest, because she couldn't figure out whether Lan Yura was still a human being. The explorer not only saved the beauty's life, but also qualified her to become a hero. This matter received great attention from the top leaders of the ascetic monks. Lan Yura repaid her kindness, and her favorability towards the explorer had already exceeded 90 at that time. You can all take a bow. Because Lan Yura and the explorers are trapped in the barrier in the cave, they cannot escape. At that time, Xiao Ming's strength was limited and he had no choice but to escape from the barrier by resurrecting after death, and return to his own territory to seek help from the ascetic monks. He originally thought that he could follow the large army to rescue Lan Yura, but unexpectedly he was kidnapped by Liangshan heroes on the way and taken to the mountain to become a bandit. I even regretted not being able to see my sister again. Of course, the senior leaders of the ascetic monks still rescued Lan Yura, but they only wanted to observe and evaluate her for a long time, and did not arrange for her to meet with the explorers again. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with Lan Yura, he immediately sent her to the strategic map to fight for the ascetic monks. There is no way, the sooner this advantage can be used, the better. If her personal strength is strong enough, coupled with the official resources of the ascetic monk, Lan Yura can play a big role in the early stage. If he goes too late, he becomes an ordinary hero. It was the battlefield battles over the past few months that brought Lan Yura's adventure level back to level 5. The mission of the strategic map was so important that Lan Yura couldn't even apply for a vacation and come to visit her benefactor, even though she knew that the explorer had been staying in Bianliang, Tokyo for a long time. Until today, because of the suspected disappearance of the explorer, Lan Yura finally obtained the qualification to accompany Mr. Guo to Bianliang. In fact, the two groups of people have been here for several days. In the past few days, there was no in-depth communication between the two parties. Instead, they each understand the situation with their own people and find ways to find it. They speculated that there was a certain probability that the explorer was deliberately joking with Song Xiaofeng, Fan Rui, Huo Yingxiang, and others, and used some kind of deception to hide outside the temple. Therefore, both sides sent manpower to search in the streets and alleys of Bianliang City. The result is naturally nothing. But it doesn't matter, everyone in Liangshan came prepared. Gongsun Sheng used the 1,000-mile tracking technique in Taoism, hoping to trace the traces of the explorers. However, the capital of the Song dynasty was more than 10,000 miles away from the Nordic Immortal Palace, far beyond the scope of the Taoist magic, and could not be traced at all. Mr. Guo brought the treasure used by the ascetic monk headquarters for tracking, which was more powerful than Gongsun Sheng's Taoist magic. It's a pity that the strength is also very limited, and it still hasn't been effective. He also tried to use his newfound powers to guide himself. Unexpectedly, the force really responded. It guided Mr. Guo not to go anywhere, but to just wait in the temple. It made Mr. Guo think that he had just come into contact with something like the force. He was not good at learning and had poor skills, so he failed. Quite depressing. After searching for several days with no results, the depression spread to everyone. As of yesterday, the explorer had been missing for 10 days, and both parties were in a bad mood. So, when the two sides were discussing countermeasures today, they failed to control their tempers and started to quarrel. This was not like the previous pretend quarrels over the right to speak. Now their anger was a little heightened, and the quarrel was more real and intense. For example, in this situation, a child ran away to play without permission and did not come home for several days and nights. The parents searched for the child for several days but could not find it, and a battle broke out between them. In fact, it was all Xiaoming's fault for being irresponsible. He teleported away without thinking about the need to tell his family. It's still the players thinking, not paying enough attention to NPCs. After switching to informing the deceased, Xiaoming didn't care much about the affairs of other characters and left everything to the intelligent program to handle. But how can an intelligent program understand this kind of human sophistication? Even if he understood, he didn't have the ability to return to the Song dynasty from Northern Europe, and it would still be in vain. In fact, if the explorer came back a few days later, the two masters might start fighting. The first one to discover that the explorer had returned was Lan Yura. After being transformed by the T-virus, her senses were very keen. The two masters were too engrossed in the quarrel to notice. "Ah! Brother, you're back," Lan Yura exclaimed, and then she jumped over and took the explorer into her arms. I don't know why, but her smile was still there, but tears were already flowing down. Maybe she was crying with joy. Xiaoming was also very happy to see her. Seeing her crying, he quickly patted her back to comfort her. "I'm back, sister." It took a few seconds for the others to realize what had happened. There was a boom at the scene, and suddenly the pot exploded. Everyone rushed over, talking loudly. But what they said was basically the same, just asking where the explorer had gone. Why had there been no news for a long time? It was too outrageous. This matter really couldn't be told truthfully. It was difficult to explain the truth, and everyone might not believe it. Xiaoming had to modify the facts a little, saying that he was summoned by the residual soul of a Western god Odin to help the other party resurrect. So he came back a little late. Fortunately, the leaders were all masters. In such a noisy environment, they could still clearly distinguish every sound and clearly hear the explorer's answer. They all shuddered in their hearts. In the world of the main game of Magic Planet, gods really exist. Anything involving gods is no small matter. Guo Lao and Gong Sun Sheng's heartbeats accelerated instantly. They were surprised that a new god had surfaced, and they were also worried that their apprentice was ignorant and would be in trouble if he violated any taboos. They couldn't help but frown. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1650. It was his master who was considerate. If someone heard that the explorer had a relationship with a god who fell and resurrected, the first thought would be, what benefits can I get from it? Guo Jinsong and Gong Sun Sheng are not such people. Their first concern is the safety of the explorers. Many gods have fallen in the Magic Planet, some are good, some are evil, and some are indistinguishable from good to evil. This does not mean that evil gods cannot be dealt with. In fact, sometimes, some gods are too upright, have no regard for others, and are strict with their believers, resulting in limited benefits. Some evil gods are informal, whether they are players or NPCs. If believers make friends with them and do things for them, they will gain more. Of course, you must also be careful of the other party's sugar-coated cannonballs. Hades, the king of Hades, is an obvious example. He is by no means the only evil god, nor even the most despicable one. Explorers who achieve high status at a young age inevitably have weak foundations and lack of experience. It would be terrible if he was tricked by the evil god. So the two masters instantly turned enemies into friends and stopped arguing with each other. They turned their guns and jointly launched an interrogation of the explorer, carefully questioning the details of the explorer's dealings with the god King Odin. This situation is similar to that of parents. Xiao Ming had no choice but to make up lies to get through. Facing these two old foxes, it's not that difficult. In desperation, he put everything on his amazing financial resources and powerful subordinates. First of all, the 7 Grade 7 alien King Kong subordinates frightened Mr. Guo and Gong Sun Sheng. You must know that Lu Junyi, the number 1 master in Liangshan, is only at level 7. The two of them are only 6th level masters. Mr. Guo now has signs of being promoted to the 7th level, but it will take several months to practice, maybe 3 to 5 years. But his apprentice suddenly had 7 subordinates who were more powerful than him. How could the two elders not be surprised? Just these 7 guys can already make Liangshan forces or ascetic monk forces pay special attention to them. Not to mention being able to fight each other, no one on both sides would dare to look down on the explorers anymore. Secondly, if you have masters, you can naturally make money. The earning power brought by 7 masters is very considerable. Therefore, there is a reasonable explanation for the explorer's behavior of throwing away money in the Nordic Fairy Palace. Of course, this is also related to Xiao Ming not spending much money in the Fairy Palace. If the amount of money the complainant spent in the underworld was revealed, even if there were 7 masters to support the scene, it would not be enough. Isn't it only natural that a rich and powerful person like Explorer should be favored by a down-and-out god like Odin and become his first believer? And the things he was able to teleport back and forth between Northern Europe and the Song dynasty were all blamed on Odin. Seeing that the two masters agreed with his explanation, Xiao Ming took advantage of the situation to promote his suggestion. The two masters are so worried about the apprentice, and the apprentice bursts into tears. Otherwise, I hope the two masters can also believe in Odin and help the apprentice. Check it out. Odin is a new god who has just been resurrected, and he is a good helper in times of need. Guojin-san quickly waved his hand to stop his apprentice's explicit words, and said with profound meaning, "Disciple, be careful what you say. Don't say these words again. Be pious when treating gods. Don't ask what gods have done for you. You have to ask yourself what you have done for God, do you understand?" Gong Sun Sheng also twisted his beard and smiled and said, "If you don't listen to the old man, you will suffer a loss. Your master Guo's words are wise words. You should keep them in mind and always think about them." After saying this, he looked at each other and smiled at Guojin-san, saying nothing. Middle. Xiao Ming still understood the rules of making a fortune in silence. He muttered "two old foxes" in his heart, said nothing more, and bowed down to accept the order. Originally, he wanted to invite the Liangshan heroes and ascetic monks to join the Nordic Immortal Palace in large numbers, but now he feels that there is no need to say it out loud. "I definitely can't hide my thoughts from the second elder." Sure enough, Gong Sun Sheng continued, "You are from Liangshan, and Liangshan should naturally support your development in the Immortal Palace. I will send a message to my brother Gongming thousands of miles away to inform him of this matter. If what I expected is good, brother Gongming will definitely send some of his brothers to join the Immortal Palace to support his disciple, which is also a cunning plan." Gong Sun Sheng's words are very reasonable. After all, the Liangshan forces had a reputation as thieves in the Song dynasty. Except for the strange explorer, other well-known leaders were not allowed to wander into the towns of the Song dynasty at will. The more prosperous the place, the more dangerous it is. Fortunately, the prosperity of Liangshan village is not too bad. Although it is a military city, there are many talents on the mountain, and there is no shortage of various craftsmen. Basically, everything that should be there is available. I won't feel aggrieved at all. But after all, it's not as good as traveling to Northern Europe. The wanted orders of the Song dynasty are not easy to use there, and the heroes of Liangshan can live openly and openly under the sun, maybe even build a country. The most important thing is that many good men have families, wives, and children. Parents must consider the future of their children. Many people don't want their children to have a bad name when they are born. Gongsun Sheng is a monk and has no such need. However, the monk is compassionate and cares more about these things than other leaders. However, there is no need to explain these considerations to the explorer. A cunning rabbit with 3 caves is enough to make the point. After saying this, Gongsun Sheng said no more, stood up and returned to his bedroom. In broad daylight, of course he did not go back to sleep, but found a secluded place to send a message to Songjiang using Taoism. When Gongsun Sheng left, Mr. Guo and the explorer both stood up to see him off. They sat down and continued chatting after he left. Emotionally, Guo Jinsong is 3 times more friendly than Gongsun Sheng. Old Guo gave the explorer a detailed instruction and warned him of the various taboos in dealing with gods. He left after a long time. He also had to inform the senior leaders of the ascetic monk as soon as possible about Odin and the Nordic fairy palace. Although the ascetic monk is not a thief, he doesn't mind making a few holes. Besides, Liangshan went to Northern Europe to develop, which was absconding for fear of crime. The ascetic monk went to Northern Europe to expand the territory and make a better name. Old Guo has made up his mind. Even if the senior leaders of the ascetic monk can't make up their minds, his lineage will definitely send people to the Nordic fairy palace to support his beloved disciple, the explorer. He can't let others bully his own disciples, and he can't let Gongsun Sheng compare with him. Unconsciously, old Guo has already had the signs of competing for favor with Gongsun Sheng. The explorer has at least 7 rank 7 masters under his command, and there are very few people in the world who can bully him. So protecting his beloved disciple was just an excuse, and competing with Gongsun Sheng was the real reason. As soon as he left, Lan Yura and little lowly Song Xiaofeng rushed over, pulling the explorer to ask questions. They pushed Huo Yingxiang and Fan Rui aside. Lan Yura was worried, while Song Xiaofeng was curious. Xiao Ming told them about the strange scenes in the Nordic fairy palace. The 2 girls were dumbfounded, and even Fan Rui and Huo Yingxiang were fascinated.